welcome to the Football Philosophy channel. And today Argentina is in a state of mourning after the sad news came through yesterday that the great Diego Maradona has sadly passed away. He's held in such high regard over there that they have announced 3 days of mourning in Argentina. Diego Maradona was a truly wonderful player. He led Argentina to the World Cup victory that they had in 1986, and I don't think I ever saw a team that relied so heavily on one player. You know, most teams that win World Cup finals generally have one or two world-class players in the ranks, but I don't think there was ever a player who was so important to a team where you could state almost categorically that they wouldn't have won any trophy that they might have won without that player in that team. Diego Maradona was one of the greatest players that ever played the game. As I say, they won the World Cup in Mexico in 1986. They also reached a final in 1990. You know, Diego Maradona led Argentina to 2 World Cups. Okay, they lost one final, but he led them to 2 World Cup finals. To put that into context, England have only ever played in 1 World Cup final in their history, and Diego Maradona led the team to 2 World Cup finals that they wouldn't have got to without him. I'm absolutely certain that he wouldn't. He was so vital to that team. He was such a brilliant player. He was unbelievable, Diego Maradona. He was born in Buenos Aires in 1960. And he made his name with Argentinos Juniors and then Boca Juniors before Barcelona brought him to Europe. In 1982, Barcelona broke the world record transfer fee at the time, to bring him over to Europe. He only stayed with Barca a couple of seasons before Napoli signed him, and he had some fantastic years with Napoli. He was with Napoli about 5 or 6 seasons, and what he did in Napoli, by the way, Napoli broke the world record as well to sign him, so he was the first player to actually break the world record transfer fee twice. When he signed for Napoli had never previously won the Italian league, Serie A. While he was with Napoli, they did the double in 86-87. They'd never previously won either the league or the cup in Italy, Napoli. And in 86-87 they did the double with Diego Maradona playing for them. Then in 89-90 they did another double of sorts. They won the league title again, and they won the UEFA Cup, the forerunner of the Europa League. It's the only European trophy that Napoli had never won a European trophy before that, and they've never won one since. And the 2 titles that they won with Maradona in the team of 87 and 90 remain the only 2 titles that Napoli have ever won. So the effect that he had on a team, as I've just mentioned with Argentina during the World Cups, he had the same effect on that Napoli team. As I say, to sign for a club that with such a history, and to do that, it was an unbelievable achievement. I only ever saw him once in the flesh. I saw him play at Old Trafford. Lots of United fans of my age and even younger than me will remember that night. It wasn't a great night for Maradona. Lots of people that I speak to often sometimes think that a team can't be beaten when you've got a great player in your team, or some people sometimes think, oh, if we've got that player playing for us, we'll win this and we'll win that. It doesn't always just work like that, no matter how good you are. And on that night, we had a great player of our own, Brian Robson, who was absolutely phenomenal on the night. United had lost 2-0 over in the Nou Camp in the first leg, and they came over there with Maradona in the ranks, and we weren't expected. It seemed an almost impossible task to turn it around. But United won 3-0 on the night with Brian Robson getting 2 of the goals, and I think Frank Stapleton got the other one. But it was an unbelievable night at Old Trafford. But the only time I ever saw Diego Maradona in the flesh was that night, and obviously it wasn't a great night for him. But he was an absolutely unbelievable player. Is he the best player ever? Lots of people, obviously ex-footballers, ex-managers and coaches, and even heads of state are talking about Diego Maradona and passing away. And lots of people are saying that he's the best ever player to ever walk this planet. I'm not going to argue with that, but what a lot of people do when they talk about the greatest player that they've ever seen, or the greatest player that's ever walked this earth, it's a little bit easy to remember the players that you've seen. And some people seem to think that football didn't exist before the players that they've seen, and I think a lot of people most people fall into that trap and can't imagine that there was great players before that. So I'm just going to have a quick look at one or two of the great players that I've seen, and talk about some just 3 or 4 players whose records I've looked at, and players that I've heard of who were fantastic players before my time, and just wonder how great those players were. I'm sure Maradona's right up there with the best, but when you're talking about people that you've not seen play, how can you really compare players, and how is it possible to say that such and such a player is the best player that's ever walked the earth? I've just listed 10 great players that I've seen for United. I'm not saying any of these players are as good as Maradona, but I have seen some wonderful players for Manchester United. Charlton, please excuse me if I've missed any favourites off the list of yours, but I've seen Charlton, Law, Best, Brian Robson, Cantona, Keane, Scholes, Van Nistelrooy, Ronaldo and Wayne Rooney, all people regarded as true greats for Manchester United. Anyone I've spoken to who's old enough to have seen Duncan Edwards play, I would love to have seen Duncan Edwards play. He died due to his injuries at the Munich air disaster in 1958. He was only 21 years of age. He'd played 151 games for Manchester United already at 21 years of age. He had 2 league titles under his belt. He had 18 caps for England already. The 2 league titles that he won in 1956 and 57, he was obviously only 19, probably 18 years old when he started playing in the team that first won it, and he was an important player. He wasn't a bit part player, he was a vital part of the team, winning league titles at such a young age. What Duncan Edwards could have gone on to have done or achieve in his career, we'll never know. As I say, he was sort of 21 years and a few months old only when he sadly passed away. That's just United players. Again, excuse me again if I've missed. I'm sure there's lots and lots of world greats that I will have missed off here, but just a short list of players that qualify as truly great players over the years: Pele, Johan Cruyf, Beckenbauer, Lionel Messi. I've mentioned Ronaldo on the list, but Ronaldo after Manchester United. Gerd Müller, who was a phenomenal goal scorer for Bayern Munich and for West Germany, as it was at the time, winning World Cups, European Cups, and obviously plenty of Bundesliga titles. He was an unbelievable player. But those players that I've listed there are all players during my lifetime. And as I said, people don't think football existed before players that they've seen. So I've had a look at a couple of players that I've never seen. They were before my time. The first one, Di Stefano, also born in Buenos Aires, by the way. He played for Real Madrid from 1953 to 1964. He had 11 seasons with Real Madrid. He scored 308 goals in 396 games for Real Madrid. And he played in... Real Madrid won the first 5 European Cups. It started in 1955-56 and they won it from 56 up until 60. He played in all of those first 5 finals and actually scored in 5 consecutive European Cup finals. By the time he finished playing for Real Madrid, he had 8 league titles and 5 European Cups. Di Stefano will definitely qualify as one of the players who would be a competitor, if that's the right word, to be regarded as one of, if not the greatest player to have walked this earth. I never saw him. I'd love to have seen him, obviously, but it's before my time. But that's Di Stefano. Ferenc Puskas overlapped Di Stefano in that great Real Madrid team. Ferenc Puskas, Hungarian, started his career with Honvéd Budapest. Obviously, it's not one of the strongest leagues in the world, but he scored 358 goals in 350 games for Honvéd before Real Madrid signed him. He signed for Real Madrid in 1958, so as I say, he did play with Di Stefano. Their careers overlapped with Real Madrid. They played together for about 6 years. Di Stefano ended up with 5 La Liga titles and 3. Puskas got 5 La Liga titles and 3 European Cups. And Ferenc Puskas remains the only man to have ever scored 4 goals in a European Cup final, and he's also the only man to have twice scored a hat, including that 4, by the way. He has twice scored a hat-trick in the European Cup final, i.e. the Champions League final as it is today. Ferenc Puskas said, I mean, there'll be plenty of people alive today that have seen him play. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who would say that Ferenc Puskas was the greatest player that they ever saw. Ferenc Puskas was part of the Magical Magyars, as they were called, the great Hungarian team of the 60s, and in that Hungarian team there was Lazlo cabala. Lazlo cabala signed for Barcelona, so he was playing for Barcelona at the same time as possibly the greatest Real Madrid team ever was knocking around. And Lazlo cabala, lots of people would argue, particularly the older generation in Barcelona that might remember him, might argue that he was one of the greats. As I say, they were competing with possibly the greatest ever Real Madrid team, but Lazlo cabala ended up with 4 La Liga titles in the 1950s. Obviously, it's not all about titles if you just want to go off trophies, because at the end of the day, when you look at a footballer, it's great to look at a footballer's style, and if somebody's brilliant at dribbling, if somebody's strong in the tackle, and if somebody's fantastic in the air. There's all different aspects to football, but the main goal in the end is to actually obviously score goals. It doesn't have to. It's a team game. It doesn't have to be you who scores the goals. But the main objective, let's put it that way, the main objective is to score goals. It's to stop the opposition from scoring goals, which is equally important. And it's obviously the main objective is to win matches and win trophies. So if you was just going to look at the amount of trophies won with our own Ryan Giggs, as I say, it doesn't really matter what your style of football is. If you win so many trophies, you could argue I'm one of the greatest players ever. I did all this. Ryan Giggs won 13 league titles and 2 Champions Leagues. Obviously, it might be a long time before you see somebody overtake that record of Ryan Giggs' 13 league titles. But Real Madrid themselves, again, back to that same Real Madrid side, actually a left winger as well. Francisco Henso played for Real Madrid, and he won 12 La Liga titles and 6 European Cups. No player in history has won more La Ligas, and no player in history has won more European Cups than Francisco Henso. So there's just a few from sort of modern-ish times. Certainly they're only just before my time. Those players, maybe 10 or 15 years before my time. But even further back, Evertonians would love to hear this. Dixie Dean, I'd like to mention, who played for Everton in the 1930s. Dixie Dean played 399 games for Everton and scored 349 goals. He only played 16 times for England and scored 18 goals for England. In 1927-28, he started in the 20s to the 30s. 1927-28, he was 21 years old and he scored 60 goals in the old First Division, which is the forerunner of the Premier League, obviously. 60 goals in one season, just league goals. Now, some people might think, well, was it a lot easier? Lots of people think this. It was a lot easier to score goals in those days. I'm not so sure that argument holds water. That particular season, Everton scored 102 goals. They were the league champions. They scored 102 goals, but there was more teams in the league. There was 22 teams in the league. You played 42 league games. Very recently, Manchester City scored 106 goals, but there's only 38 games in a league season now. So 106 goals in 38 games is considerably more than 102 goals in 42 games. So Dixie Dean scored 60 goals in a team that scored 102 goals. As I say, City scored 106. So to sort of say that goals were easier to come by is a bit churlish, really. So if you think, I mean, some youngsters today might think, oh, Sergio Aguero, them days would have scored hundreds of goals or whatever he would have done. I mean, what do you think Sergio Aguero could have done? Scored 70 goals perhaps that season? I doubt it somehow. So unbelievable stats for Dixie Dean. Everton won the league again in 1932. That season he scored a mere 45 goals. You know, if he'd just scored 45 goals once in a season, it's an unbelievable stat. But to have scored 60 in a season is just astonishing, really. I'd love to have seen Dixie Dean play. What a player he was, but obviously that's a long time, even before my time, as I say, a long time ago. So, was Diego Maradona the greatest ever player to walk this planet? In my opinion, it's impossible to say. He's certainly one of the best, in my lifetime. I wouldn't argue against it if somebody said he was the best during my lifetime. But if somebody wanted to say he's the best player ever to have walked this planet, I don't think that's a possible thing to say. Nobody knows. Nobody knows the answer to that question. What I can say with absolute, complete confidence is that Diego Maradona is one of the very best players ever to have walked this planet, without a shadow of a doubt. Rest in peace, Diego.